My name is Lena, and this is the story of how my parents' 35th wedding anniversary became the night my family decided that everything I'd built belonged to them. It started with a tax document. Not a laptop, not a careless moment, a single piece of paper that slipped out of my coat pocket when I hung it up in my parents' hallway closet. My younger brother Cody found it. He didn't even mean to, he said later. He was just looking for a spare hanger. I'll never forget the way he walked into the dining room, holding that paper like it was evidence at a crime scene. He didn't say anything at first. He just stood there in the doorway while my mother was lighting the anniversary candles, and my father was pouring wine, and my sister-in-law, Britt, was rearranging the centerpiece for the fourth time, because nothing was ever quite right for her. Then he set the paper down on the table, right next to the breadbasket, and said, "Lena, what is this?" I knew before I even looked up. $7.4 million. That was my net income for the prior tax year. I was 32 years old. I had built a logistics consulting firm from my kitchen table after getting laid off during the pandemic, and for 3 years I had quietly, carefully, deliberately kept that information away from my family. Not because I was ashamed, because I knew them. The room went so still, I could hear the candle wax dripping. My mother turned from the sideboard. My father set down his wine glass. Britt looked up from the centerpiece, with her eyes already narrowing, already calculating. My brother watched me the way he used to watch me when we were kids, and he thought I had more Halloween candy than him. That specific brand of his, where his feelings were already hurt before he even confirmed the facts. "That's mine," I said, keeping my voice flat. "You weren't supposed to see that." $7 million, my mother said softly. Just that, like she was tasting the words. 7.4, Cody said, and that's just 1 year. I reached across the table and picked the document up. I folded it in half. I put it in my back pocket. Nobody moved. In the kitchen, the timer for the roast went off and nobody moved to get it. My father broke the silence first. He let out a long, slow breath through his nose, the way he does when he's deciding which version of himself to be. He chose the gentle one, which was always the most dangerous. "Sweetheart," he said, "why would you keep something like this from us?" And there it was, not congratulations, not pride. Why would you keep this from us? As though the secret was the problem and not what I knew they'd do the moment they found out. I said I hadn't kept anything. I said I worked hard, and what I earned was my business. My mother made a sound that wasn't quite a word. Britt drifted to stand next to Cody the way she always did when she sensed something shifting in her favor. The anniversary dinner sat untouched on the stove. "We're your family," my mother finally said. She sat down. She pressed her hands together on the table like she was about to pray. "We raised you. We sacrificed for you. And you've been sitting on this for years without a word." I had worked 3 jobs my junior year of college when they told me they couldn't help with tuition anymore because they needed to redo the kitchen. I had paid my own way through a graduate program while sending $200 a month home because my father had a slow quarter. I had driven 4 hours to help them move, twice, and taken 0 reimbursement for gas or time. The sacrifices went in one direction for a long time, and I didn't say any of that, not yet. I said I needed some air and stepped onto the back porch. Britt followed me. I had expected Cody, but it was Britt, which told me something. She leaned against the railing and crossed her arms and gave me the smile she used when she was about to say something she'd framed as concern. "You know," she said, "Cody and I have been really struggling. The mortgage refinance fell through. He almost didn't tell you because he didn't want to worry you." I looked at her. "Is that right? All I'm saying is that family helps family." She shrugged one shoulder. "That's what we do." I went back inside. Dinner happened the way a funeral happens. Technically, mechanically, with everyone performing something they didn't feel. My mother talked about the neighborhood. My father refilled his wine. Cody ate with his eyes down. Britt made a comment about my apartment being very nice neighborhood. She imagined it was expensive. I said it was fine. When I was getting my coat to leave, my father stopped me in the hallway. He'd had enough wine by then that the gentle version had faded, and the blunt version had arrived. He said he thought it would be a good idea if we all sat down with a financial advisor, someone who could help the family structure things properly. He said that word, structure, and I felt something cold move through me. What does that mean, Dad? Structure what? He rubbed the back of his neck. Just, a family trust. Something that protects everyone. Protects everyone. I nodded. I said I'd think about it. I drove home with my hands too tight on the wheel and my mind already running the math on what that actually meant. I called my best friend Annika when I got back to my apartment. She answered on the second ring the way she always does when she can tell from the contact name that something is wrong. I told her everything. She listened without interrupting, which is one of the things I love most about her. And when I finished, she said, "Okay, first thing tomorrow, you call your attorney. Not next week. Tomorrow." I told her I didn't want to overreact. She said the word structure out of your father's mouth in that context is not something you underreact to. She was right. I slept badly. I kept replaying the look on Cody's face when he set that paper on the table. There was something rehearsed about it, I realized. The way he'd waited for everyone to be in the room. The way he hadn't seemed surprised. He knew where to look. That thought didn't leave me. I called my attorney, Petra, the next morning at 8:15. She was not the kind of lawyer you called for routine matters. She was methodical, sharp, and extremely hard to rattle, which was why I'd hired her years earlier to handle my business contracts. She listened to my summary, asked 4 clarifying questions, and then said, "I want you to do something for me before we meet. Go through every account you have access to online and screenshot the current balances and transaction histories. All of them. Do it this morning." I asked why. Because if they've already been in contact with someone, the time frame matters. I did it. Sitting at my kitchen table with my coffee going cold, I opened every account. Business, personal, investment, the HSA I barely touched, and I screenshotted everything and emailed it to myself, and then to Petra. It took 40 minutes. I didn't find anything alarming, but I found something. 6 days before my parents' anniversary party, there had been a Google search. I could tell from a linked account security alert that someone had searched my name alongside the words net worth and business registration from a device that had been logged into one of my old family photo sharing accounts. An account I'd forgotten I was still linked to. An account my mother had access to. This wasn't spontaneous. Cody didn't accidentally find that paper. They had already been looking. I met with Petra that afternoon. I brought the screenshots. I brought the security alert. I brought 3 years of documented financial history. She read through everything with the focused quiet she always had. And then she looked up and said, "I want to talk about what your options look like if this escalates." She explained what a petition for guardianship or conservatorship required. She explained the threshold for proving someone was financially incapable of managing their own affairs. She explained that it was difficult to succeed in such a petition without some evidence of incapacity, but that the process itself, the filing, the legal notice, the hearings, was disruptive and expensive to defend against regardless of outcome. "Some people file knowing they won't win," she said. "They file because the disruption is the goal." I thought about my father saying the word structure. I asked Petra what she recommended. She said lock down everything she hadn't already walked me through, update my beneficiaries explicitly and immediately, and wait to see what move they made next. "Don't call them first," she said. "Don't reach out. If they contact you, tell me before you respond." 2 days later, my mother called. She left a voicemail that was soft and a little tearful, which was her default when direct tactics weren't working. She said she hoped I wasn't upset about the dinner. She said she and my father just loved me and wanted to make sure I was okay. She said, "We're your parents," twice in a 90-second message, which told me the message had been rehearsed. I texted Petra before I called back. Petra said, "Let it sit for now." Then Britt texted me directly. She said Cody was devastated. She said he felt like I was treating the family like strangers. She attached a screenshot of a text Cody had supposedly sent her about feeling hurt. Which, and I say this with full awareness of how it sounds, was a very strange thing to attach to a text to me. It felt less like a sister-in-law reaching out and more like evidence being assembled. I forwarded everything to Petra. A week after the anniversary dinner, I got a certified letter. The return address was a law firm I didn't recognize, based in my parents' city. The letter informed me that on behalf of my parents and acting as my closeted interested parties, this firm had initiated a preliminary inquiry regarding my capacity to manage substantial financial assets, citing recent concerning behavior and family-observed symptoms of financial recklessness. Financial recklessness. I had never in my adult life missed a payment, defaulted on a loan, or made a single financial decision that anyone could point to as reckless. The firm had cited no specific incidents because there were none. The letter was designed to look formal and threatening while containing almost nothing actionable. It was, as Petra put it when I called her, a fishing expedition dressed up in letterhead. But it was also a declaration. They weren't negotiating anymore. They were escalating. I sat with that letter for a long time. I sat with the fact that my mother had been searching my name online before I even walked through their door. I sat with the fact that Cody's discovery had been staged. I sat with the fact that my father's structure conversation had happened the same evening as a pre-planned legal outreach to an attorney. I sat with all of it, and somewhere in the middle of all that sitting, the grief I'd been trying not to feel arrived. Not grief about the money. Grief about the fact that this had been the plan, that the anniversary dinner had been the occasion chosen to spring it. 35 years of their marriage, and they had used it as a backdrop for this. I called Annika. I did not cry, but I was close. She said, "What do you need right now?" I said, "I need to make sure they can't touch anything." "Then let's do that," she said. "And then when it's done, you call me back and we order food and you let yourself feel whatever you need to feel." In that order. I went back to Petra. Over the next 2 weeks, we restructured everything. The business entity was already clean, but we added layers. A holding structure, updated operating agreements, explicit language in every governing document about management authority. My personal accounts moved to a bank my family had never heard of, in a city they'd never think to look in. I changed every password, every linked account, every security question. I notified my bank in writing that I had not authorized any third parties to inquire on my behalf, and that any such inquiry should be documented and reported to me immediately. Petra drafted a response to the law firm. It was 3 paragraphs. It documented the absence of any factual basis for their inquiry, cited the security alert evidence of premeditated financial surveillance, and closed with a clear statement. Any further action along these would be met with a civil suit for harassment and tortious interference with business relations. We sent it certified mail. I didn't hear from the law firm again. What I heard from, 6 days later, was my brother. Not through Britt this time. Directly. He called me from his cell at 9:30 on a Tuesday night, which meant he was alone, which meant Britt didn't know he was calling. His voice was different without her in the room. Quieter. More like the person I grew up with. "I need to tell you something," he said. I waited. The attorney thing was Mom and Dad's idea. I didn't know they'd already called a lawyer. I thought we were just going to talk to you. At dinner, I didn't know about the letter. I chose my words carefully. But you knew about the search. Silence. You knew they'd looked me up before the party, I said. You knew where the coat closet was. You knew exactly where to find that paper. More silence. Then, it wasn't supposed to go this far. I asked him what that meant. What was it supposed to go? He didn't have a clean answer for that. He said he was sorry. He said he thought they were just going to ask me for help, and it had gotten out of hand. I listened to all of it. I let him finish. I told him I appreciated him calling. Then I told him I needed some time, and I hung up. I believe he was telling me a partial truth. I believe he hadn't known about the lawyer. I also believe he had known about the search, had deliberately staged the document discovery, and had told himself the whole time that it was innocent. That it was just family wanting to know, just family hoping to ask. People are very good at managing the parts of their own behavior they don't want to examine. It didn't change what had happened. 3 months passed. My parents sent 2 more certified letters through the same firm, both more vague than the first, both responded to by Petra in the same clear, documented terms. The firm stopped responding after the second exchange. Whatever my parents were paying them, it apparently wasn't worth continuing against someone who was actually prepared. I changed my estate documents. I removed my parents from the emergency contact line on my business accounts. I did not remove Cody entirely. I moved him to a secondary position behind Annika and my business partner, because I still wasn't sure what he was, exactly. Complicit or coerced? Maybe both. I didn't block any of their numbers. I let their calls go to voicemail, and I listened to every message, and I did not respond. Then, about 4 months after the anniversary dinner, my mother reached out through a channel she thought might land differently. She emailed my business address. She had never done that before. She wrote 3 paragraphs about how difficult things had been since my father's health scare. I hadn't known about a health scare, and how she hoped I could find it in my heart to see past all the misunderstanding and come home for Christmas. She wrote, "I know we made mistakes. I know things went too far. We just love you and we got scared, and that doesn't excuse it. But I hope you can understand." I read it 4 times. Then I forwarded it to Petra with the subject line, "For the file." Then I opened a new email to my mother and I wrote back. I kept it short. I told her I was glad my father was doing okay. I told her I was not ready to come home for Christmas. I told her that what had happened wasn't a misunderstanding, that they had hired an attorney and initiated a legal process against me on the basis of nothing, and that the word for that was a choice, not a mistake. I told her I loved her in the way you love someone who has hurt you. From a distance, with a lot of grief, and without being willing to put yourself back in the position to be hurt the same way again. I said I hoped they had a good Christmas. I did not hear back for 2 weeks. Then she sent a single line. "I understand. I'm sorry. I don't know what that means for us, long term. I don't know if it means anything." The version of my family I thought I had, the one that would never deliberately try to strip away what I'd built, that version doesn't exist anymore, and I can't pretend it does. What exists instead is something more complicated. A mother who is genuinely sorry, maybe, and also someone who had a law firm on retainer before I walked through the door. Those 2 things are both true. I'm still figuring out how to hold them. What I do know is this: I'm not angry. I was, for a long time, and the anger served a purpose. It kept me moving when I wanted to freeze. But I'm not angry anymore. I'm clear. There's a difference. The business is doing well. Annika and I got dinner last month to celebrate a contract renewal, and she ordered champagne without asking, and I didn't argue. Petra sent me a card, an actual paper card, which I did not know she did, that said simply, "Well handled." My brother texted me last week. No subtext, no Brit in the background, as far as I could tell. He asked if I wanted to get coffee sometime. I looked at the message for a while. I didn't answer that day. I'm not sure I'm ready. But I kept the message, which I think means something. Here is what I want you to hear, if you're watching this and you recognize any part of it. The people who love you because of what you can give them are not loving you. They're managing you. And the moment you become difficult to manage, the moment you say no, the moment you hold your ground, the moment you refuse to be structured, is the moment you find out which kind of person you're dealing with. That's not a pleasant thing to learn. But it's a necessary one. You don't owe anyone access to what you've built. Not even the people who were there at the beginning. Especially not the people who were there at the beginning and are now using that history as leverage. Build your walls. Know your people. And if someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time, even when it breaks your heart to do it.